Welcome to RGBA, colorful tech news and reviews. This is episode 62. My name is Alexandre Valia-Lagacé, and I'm joined by my co-host, Talon Ménard. So no follow-up this week. Let's dive in right in the news. First off, for all of you listeners of our podcast, Futurama, if it's something that you liked when you were younger, or you still watch reruns on Netflix or whatever, they're coming back for a 42 minutes episode, but it's not a TV episode, it's a podcast episode. So the people from Nerdist basically got all of the staff together from the show, all the actors, voice actors, and they basically recorded a 42 minutes episode with the real voice of the cast. So that will be something quite special to listen to. I don't know if you thought or listened to Futurama in the past.
No, I have never listened to it.
Yeah, so if it's something that you like, just the voices, it's more than enough to just like go back into the world of Futurama. So that's pretty cool.
It's an older show, right? Because I remember I was a kid and it was playing on Teletoon late at night. It was like one of those with South Park.
Yeah, it's pretty old. It's I don't know how many seasons they've done, probably like over 10 or 15, but yeah, it's a pretty long running show.
They've done 7.
7 seasons? Well, okay.
And the original run was from 99 to 2003. And then,
Okay.
Yep.
And then they took a little break and then they came back and yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we also learned something interesting about how Apple will service our devices or not.
Yeah. So they leaked the whole service eligibility guideline. Service eligibility guideline. I have troubles with that word. So it goes through like the amount of damage that they can repair and what they repair, what they don't repair. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, so there's basically like 3 sections, like eligible for warranty service, eligible for out of warranty services, and ineligible for service. So like, for example, if you bend your phone in half and it's like totally like in this G shape, for example, they won't repair it. If it's a non-Apple battery, they won't even touch it. And if it has been disassembled or if there's missing parts inside, then they won't touch it either. But at the other end of the spectrum, if there's like a screen problem, like dust below the screen, or like a FaceTime camera is misaligned, those are the kind of thing that they're going to fix. And if there's a hairline crack, so this is very special because hairline crack for them has not to come from a shock or a drop. So the phone or iPad or device must be pristine, and there must be like a very, very, very little hairline crack. If this hairline crack ends with a chip part, they won't service it because for them that's going to be like a drop or accidental damage and it's not covered. So yeah, it's pretty interesting because for an employee, reading this is very helpful because it's very clear, like do or do not repair, and here's the different types of accidents that they most often see. And if ever there's maybe another set of guidelines going on top of that, if for example the person is a partner of some kind that purchased a lot of devices over the year, maybe they're going to be more lenient with this kind of repairs. So, but still interesting to see a little peek inside Apple.
A couple of years ago, like the iPhone 4, they used to be so flexible and so easy to just get your new phone. You'd say, oh, it gets really hot and the battery drains, and they just give you a new phone. I think I got like 2 or 3 in my one year warranty period.
Yeah. Well, they had more issues also. So, and they had like a kind of still to prove that their design was sound and something that they should like promote a lot. So they had to work harder, and also they were also probably easier to replace parts in those iPhones. Nowadays, everything is like super tightly knit and super.
It's all glued too.
Yeah, also, and the screen is not. It's not just a screen and the digitizers separately. Everything is like fused together, so it's better looking. But if they have to replace the screen, it's also a more expensive part under part. So they have to leverage that also and make sure that they don't like crank out replacement just for fun.
Because I remember going with my iPhone 6 and I had the one you see there in the green part, the FaceTime camera that's misaligned.
Yeah.
And I was hoping to get like a replacement phone, but they had to take my phone for a couple of days. So I said, I'll just forget about it.
Yeah. Yeah, my phone already has a problem right now. So my iPhone 7 Plus, there are a couple dead pixels in the bottom part of the phone, which is only visible on white background or light gray. So every time I go to get an appointment to the Genius Bar, it's always full. Like I have to go like 4 to 5 days later. And that's never the moment where I work from home. So it's always a pain. That's a sole problem with Apple nowadays. It's hard to get an appointment. If you go there the same day, I think you're basically going to have to wait like 4 hours to be able to be squeezed in between two appointments. But just to get an appointment, if you want to do it in advance, you need to almost get a week ahead of time just to be sure to have a spot.
You better book one because you're coming up on a year now.
No, yeah, it's November. So I still have I think it's October 23rd, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, so something like that. So yeah, I still have more than 2 months.
Cool.
So we learned also something interesting, that our friendly voice assistants are vulnerable to nefarious commands. So basically there are features in those devices, mainly, for example, Alexa. When you call her name, she responds, of course. But if there's a TV ad running and the TV ad calls her name, from Amazon, of course, it won't register as a command. And people were wondering, how do they do that? And the very easiest answer to that is that it's using high-pitch ultrasonic noise frequencies and commands that basically tells the cylinder to not reply to any voice command in the next 30 seconds or whatever. So that's how your Alexa is not triggered by the ads on TV. But this can also be, of course, used for nefarious purposes. So Google Assistant, Siri, Alexa, they all respond to those high frequencies. And the special thing is that they can encode, the researchers actually encoded queries like call 123456789 or open this website or whatever. And that basically was executed by the assistant without any complaint on their part. So for them, if you speak your voice or if they hear something that is super high pitch that the human ear cannot hear, for them it's the very same thing. So you were saying it's not that bad because to access this device you must be inside the home. So yes, you're right. It can be harder for attackers to get access to your home. They have to be inside your home. But what if they basically encode those messages in some kind of a voice file, a music file, like a music song, or inside a podcast episode? Let's say like in the following seconds, I could add something in our podcast. And if you're listening to it in your home,
but we
on
don't
speakers,
do that. We won't do that.
No, we don't do that. But
yeah, just to make it clear.
Don't stop listening. But yeah, that's one of the ways that could be achieved, basically. I know there's also a part where for the MP3 encoder, they remove the frequencies that the human ear doesn't hear. So maybe it's going to be stripped by the file conversion, but there's always ways around those things. And that's one of the ways that it can be attacked. Of course, the vector of attack is not very precise. You release a file in the world. You hope that the people that you are hoping to attack listen to the same file on speakers in their home. But still, if you have enough resources and if you have enough will, you can achieve something there. So basically, you would encode a command that would say, that would tell the cylinder to open a URL where there would be like some kind of malware that will be installing itself on the cylinders. And then they would maybe be able to control the microphone from outside and record everything that's being said in the house. So that's pretty scary if you start to think about it and everything that can be abused in those systems. So pretty interesting.
It makes me think about, you remember, I think it was Wozniak, it was called like the blue box or something?
Yeah.
To make long distance calls. He'd like use special sounds there that he'd pipe into the phone, and then it let the operator know, or it I don't know how it worked exactly, but it let them do long distance calls for free.
Yeah, you were calling a service number, and then you would use that little box to generate a sequence of notes that are very special, precise frequencies, and that would basically like unlock any restriction to do a call to any number in the world for free.
Right.
So they were using that to have fun with that. But the weird thing in this thing is that before Wozniak did that, he realized that a toy coming in one of those boxed cereals actually was that exact sound, and it was already used by people to do freak attack on phones and get access to long distance. And then he just used that idea and perfected it. And I don't know if he had maybe inside help from somebody that knows exactly the technical details of the computer system from the phone company, but he basically made like a box which was basically like a what do you call those?
Soundbox, soundboard.
Yeah, it was like a soundboard. So basically, you just hit this button, and then it would do its sequence of sound for this special type of call, and then this button for another type of call. So it was very easy to do after that, to use after that. Moving on to SpaceX, they have in news a couple of days ago. Elon Musk leaked its very new spacesuit. So basically, he was working on with SpaceX in a way to redesign a new spacesuit which would be as safe as those big clunky ones that we see since the Apollo program, but has new requirements. Basically, it has to be a lot more closer to your body and a lot more shaped, like a human body, and still retain all of the same features or offer better protection or better redundant systems. So he leaked the first picture, which was basically like a side shot of the helmet and shoulders. And this week we have the full head-to-toe pic on Instagram. So you can see the whole helmet, the whole body gear, the boots, the gloves and everything. And also this little person stands in front of the crew capsule that will be attached to the Dragon rockets when they will be adapted for human transport and not just for material and goods. Oh, looks pretty sweet, man.
It looks like a racing driver suit.
Yeah.
It's really thin.
It's funny because you look at all the sci-fi shows that you see nowadays that are supposed to be taking place in 21 something or 22 something, and all those spacesuits from those shows are bulkier than what this guy did, and we're in 2017.
What's the film there? Mars? No. With
there was a bunch of Mars.
Yeah.
The Martian?
The Martian.
Yeah.
The suits, how'd they look in that movie?
Yeah.
They looked about like this.
Yeah, but The Martian is a special case because they had, even for writing the book and also for the movie, they had access to very, very smart researchers, and they would guide on exactly the science behind the thing. And probably they also had like access to people who are knowledgeable about what's the latest research into spacesuits and all those things. So that's why this movie stands out of the crowd, because it's so specifically targeted and well produced and designed. But the rest of the TV series and stuff, it's always like bulky suits that are super thick, and they have like shoulder pads the length of a football field. So it's pretty weird. And hopefully this suit does not leak like the following news about iOS 11.
Oh, that's great. So the little piece that leaked last night, I think it must be the last thing that's going to leak before the event. It can't really be. We're recording this on Saturday morning, and the event is on Tuesday.
It's a show.
Tuesday
it's a show.
Evening. Yeah. So I'm guessing there can't be more stuff that are going to leak between then, but we never know. iOS 11 GM wallpapers. So it's a bunch of 6 colors on different backgrounds, and we have 6 color stripes on a black background. We have a bunch of black backgrounds, the moon, the earth at night. So from all these black thing, what's the guess, or what do we see from black backgrounds? We see OLED. So people are continuing to push it's going to be OLED because the screens are black. We checked before the show. We don't know where this comes from, so we don't even know if it's real or what's the credibility of the source, but they look like iPhone backgrounds.
Yeah, there's about 17 background images that leaked. Like you said, there's 7 of those with the stripes. So it's very similar to, if you probably saw that in the 1990s, there was a swag catalog from Apple. So you can buy like the Apple that was with the piece that's missing, but there was also stripes going through it. So it's the same kind of left to right diagonal stripes without the Apple. So like it's there with a bunch of different background colors, and like you said, there's the Earth, the Moon, but there's also one that's super nice. It's called the file name is called the Solid Black. So it's basically a very simple all black square wallpaper. So that tells me that there might be an OLED screen, and that might be a confirmation because Apple never shipped a full color background. It was always images. Like there's also a bunch that are like flowers in front of gradient background. And that's usually what they do, like the jellyfishes and stuff like that. So it's always like colorful, and there's always textures if it's not even basically like a photo of a mountain or something in terms of macOS. But in this case, it's very special that they have first they have the moon and the Earth, which is nice on black background. That could also be, but that they have a night version, that's pretty amazing because there's not many pixels that will not be black, and also the full black. That really tells me that there's an OLED screen coming for the iPhone Pro or whatever you want to call it. But that's not all. That was just the tip of the iceberg. So let's skip the last news. We'll come back later and go to the rumors because it's linked to the iOS GM. So like you said, we don't know where this GM come from, but we got a ton of information yesterday about that. So basically, we also saw that there's a new Apple Watch Series 3 with LTE. I'm guessing somebody installed the GM on their iPhone, and they probably were able to launch the Watch app and start the pairing process, and that there are probably text in there that displays what the new watch is. There's also the crown is special. There's like a color on the wheel, kind of like they did. Was it with the gold one or the ceramic one?
Both of them.
Both of them have a special crown, right? With the color that matches the metal. Yeah. So they probably are using this visual factor to differentiate the Series 3 from the Series 1 and 2. We also learned that there's going to be a True Tone display for the iPhone Pro at least. Not sure about all the phones, but the bigger one at least has True Tone. We also have confirmation from all the text in the GM that the Face ID feature will be called Face ID. So that's the official marketing name. There's a bunch of also icons that can be seen on how to move your face around, kind of like when you do your Touch ID. You basically put your finger on the sensor, and then it asks you to move your finger around so it can photograph, if you want, the whole region of your thumb. Sorry. And in this case, in terms of face, it's the same thing. You have to move your phone around so it scans the whole 3D spectrum of your face, basically.
It's gonna be like a selfie. It's like if you're trying to frame a selfie somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of look up and down, left and right. That's what you have to do to Face ID your face the first time. And then there's the 3D emojis. So that's something new. There's new little GIF-like emojis that are basically the exact same images that you already have in your emojis, except that they're in 3D and they're animated. So there's a little dog that puts out its tongue, and there's a bunch of other examples there. And that's another one that's pretty weird. You probably all seen any Snapchat filters where you have like an orange or some kind of physical object, and when you put that filter on, you can see your face, and your mouth moves and your eyes move exactly on the object exactly the same way as your face does. So there's something similar coming to iOS 11, I'm guessing. It's called Animoji, and it's basically like the example is with the pile of poo. So basically, the Animoji is like a puppet that reenacts all your movement of your eyes and your mouth. So when you have a spoken message, it's basically going to animate itself, and that's going to be your Animoji that you're going to send with the audio, I'm guessing, to your friend. And the very last thing that we saw, there are new AirPods coming out. So from the from the unreleased iOS 11 GM, there's a mention of AirPod 1,1, which is the one we have right now, and there's a new AirPod 1,2, and there is even a little picture of them. So they seem to be very, very, very similar. There's only slight differences on the little box there.
I don't believe that.
No?
I don't think they're ready for already a revision of the AirPods. They can't even ship these that we have now. They can't even make them.
Yeah, but don't you think that's a problem? That they decided to push a product that was not manufacturable in a higher enough volume, or it was too complicated to manufacture, and they are in desperate need of a revision to make them easier to build and to be able to crank out 10 millions per week.
They're going to make them cheaper?
Not necessarily cheaper, just simpler for them. Well, yes, in the end, cheaper, because if it's easier to manufacture and there's less rejects from your manufacturing process, the whole thing costs less in the end. So the cost per unit goes down. But without changing the price, I'm pretty sure they can make a new version that's, I don't know, maybe like 30% easier to manufacture. And at the same time, maybe slide in a little thing here and there. So,
do you think they would come out and say we made a revision because they're too complicated to make in the first place?
Well, they were going to say that. They're going to say that
it's a revision. They're better in every way. Buy them.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, first of all, they can have newer chips. The same chip companies, but maybe just a newer model. So maybe better on battery life, better on reliability. Maybe because there were some problems with people having AirPods desynchronized, so the music wouldn't be synchronized. So maybe the new chips will fix that. All we see from this little image that we have a 3D render that turns around on a 360 degrees. The charging indicator seems to be gone from the inside and moved to the outside. So you can now see, I'm guessing there's a button on this, so you can press the button, kind of like you can do on those external batteries, to see the LEDs displaying the amount of charge left. So I'm guessing maybe we'll see something like that. Like maybe, I don't know, the light is goes from a green to a yellow to a red, depending on the tint or the number of flashes. You can see exactly how many battery you'll have left in your case.
And also they have the new, like at the end of the article, you can see a screenshot of the watch, of the control center on the watch, and they prove, it's going to be an LTE watch, but it's still using the old dots from iOS 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty dumb.
Yeah, it's pretty dumb, but it's been so, I don't know. Sometimes those team at Apple don't talk to each other because they have to be kept in the dark about what their colleagues are doing. And I understand that. I understand the gain from that. But when you see those little things come out and you have dots on from one team and you've got bars from the other team,
you better be like, we should change that.
Yeah, before the release, because it's not like iOS beta was released last week. We had 10 betas since the beginning of the program. So I think you kind of had enough time to change the dots for the bars.
Come on, guys.
Get on with the game, you know? And there's also a bunch of other details, which we will not cover all in depth, but basically you can now do 1080p video at 240 frames per second. You can do 4K at 24 frames per second. You can do 4K at 24 frames with film style. So I'm guessing it's maybe the ratio is maybe wider than 16:9. You can also do a bunch of other 4K. They call it footer. I'm not sure what they mean by that. And there's also higher resolution smoother and higher resolution smoother for an HEVC version. So we might be able to switch between HEVC and MPEG-4 easily, and we might be able to have more video modes for those. And there's also a new portrait lighting. So it's basically like the portrait mode that we have on the Plus phones, but it's also going to add a extra setting, which is light. So you can have different light settings. So contour light, natural light, stage light, mono, and studio light. So these will affect the way the picture is taken and the way the light is used to render the final image. So that will be something fun to play with.
4K 60 frames per second is cool because I'm always torn between, do I want to film this in 1080 60 frames or do I want 4K 30?
I'm one of those that do not like 60 frames per second. It's too fluid. It's weird.
It's too real.
Yeah, I know. But
Your
even
video
yesterday,
is too nice, sir.
I stumbled on a video yesterday from a YouTube suggestion after watching a studio tips for Final Cut Pro, and I just got the very first few seconds, and the guy was filming in 60 frames, and I'm like, oh my god, no, must turn that off. That's too weird. So yeah, but yeah, I agree that 4K 60 frames per second would be nice, even if you end up downscaling to like 24 frames per second for your final export. You still have more data to work with, and it's just better. So yeah, I agree with you. That was a problem, 1080p 60 or 4K 30, but I was always aiming for 4K because you could always downscale to 1080p and have better quality in the end. So, but still, the option would be great.
Okay, since we're on the leak train, we're going to continue. There was a big leak this week of Equifax from Equifax. 143 million people, all their information were leaked. And Equifax, if I got this right, is a personal
credit bureau.
Yeah, credit score bureau, credit bureau, bank, something. They have a lot of private information about a lot of people, and it leaked.
They're basically a third party used by banks to know exactly your credit score. So that's a number that represents your credit as a consumer. And also they provide banks with how many loans, how many credit cards limit you have, so that they have like a good picture of your financial situation, and they can manage the risk of lending you like more money or just refusing you because you are in debt too much and they shouldn't lend you any more money. So they have ton of personal information. So just to get access to your own credit score and credit file, you need to provide them with everything personal. So they have everything personal, meaning your full name, address, your social security numbers, emails, they have your credit cards and all your credit limits you have with different banks, your mortgages, your line of credits, everything. So basically, I don't think of a single entity with more information than this, because even the government, they usually are split by different ministries and they have some information, but rarely they have everything at one place. In this case, this guy has everything financial about you at one single place, and they leaked all of those to some hackers, and like you said, 143 million people were targeted for that. It's not all of Equifax customers, so I'm not sure if it's like a development server that was compromised or something, which add real data on it. But basically, this is just like a real shit show. They discovered the problem July 29th, and on August 1st, the top execs of the company basically sold a bunch of shares before it was published. So they might go to jail for that, because I know it's a crime to have insider information and to act on it. And that's why usually you hear news about Apple execs selling shares, but that was like pre-programmed from a bunch of months ago. And they said, we're going to sell those amount of share on this date in like 6 months or a year or whatever. So that way, we know that they're not going to try to play the game of selling shares before they release a bad product or bad news, because that would be illegal. And Equifax exec did just that. So that's awful. And then they built a website just for this problem, which had wrong SSL certificates. And then there was a Google warning that there was actually malware on the site. So like, every problem you can think of basically happened in the last 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, this was handled horribly.
In the worst possible way. And then if you were to fill those this little form to check if you were part of the leak, you had to agree to terms that said that you would not sue the company or do a class action or participate in a class action against them. So, and now there's people who actually are fighting those terms. And today they basically updated those that said, yes, this is the rules we put in place, except for this specific leak. Because there's also like a legal conundrum there, because you cannot say there's a problem that is that important, and just say if you want to check if you're part of the problem, that you cannot sue us because it doesn't make sense. So that's why it's one more thing that was badly handled. So, and also there's a Canadian in that, and there's also people from UK. So it's not just the US folks, it's everybody, well, not everybody, but many people in Canada and UK. So I checked for myself. I'm not in there, so I'm pretty happy. Did you check for yourself?
No, where can you check?
No. The links will be in the show notes.
We do one last thing. We'll do a lightning round of 3 things we hope to see. Doesn't mean they're going to happen, but we hope to see them in the Tuesday keynote.
Perfect.
So we'll start by 3. We'll start by the bottom there. The least probable or least one that you want to happen. Okay. So you go, because I have to think about it.
Oh yeah, it's your idea and I have to start. That's nice.
I just thought of it now.
All right, so my number 3 would be a Mac Mini revision. So stop laughing, man.
No, it's okay. It could be impossible.
Pathetic.
That's what I said. It doesn't have to be like something that's leaked or anything.
Yeah, at this point, it's basically pathetic to think that they're going to release a new version, but we never know. I'm hoping for like a new Mac Mini, but like a more modular enclosure that's easier to update components.
Like a
not
Mac
this
Pro, Mac Mini?
Well, not necessarily as special as a Mac Pro, but just if you go back one generation, the Mac Mini was just basically like a twist cap you remove from the bottom and you add access to the hard drive and the memory. And it was right there. You didn't need to disassemble anything. Whereas the latest revision, the one we have right now, you have also a twist cap. I think you have access to the memory. But if you want to remove the hard drive, you have to go all the way to the bottom, which is the top of the device. So you have to remove all of the PCBs, all the wiring, the fans and everything. And then you are able to reach the hard drive. So I'm hoping for a new Mac Mini with some kind of easy to replace RAM and hard drive.
I hope they share news about the Mac Pro. I'm never going to buy it. It's going to be too expensive, but I'm just very curious.
That's your number 3 or?
Yeah, number 3.
Okay, so your number 3, Mac Pro. Okay. Yeah, for me, I would have to copy you for number 2. Basically, the Mac Pro for me it's almost a given because we still are not exactly sure on the date, but I'm hoping that they make a macOS segment this week, and we basically have a new Mac Pro video and maybe like a release date or a release month at the very least. So that I have to believe it's almost certain for me. So that's why my number 2 makes sense. It's not possible. It's not impossible, but it can also be left out for its very own Pro event, maybe sometime in spring. What's your number 2?
Okay, my number 2 is I'd like a new, like radically new Apple Watch.
Like how radical? Like a new shape?
Yeah, like new shape. Just make the bands fit because I have a bunch, but new shape, new everything. And just keep the old bands.
I'm sure the band thing will not be a problem. That would make no sense for Apple to make a new watch and have all of those bands incompatible. So whatever shape they decide, if it's a square or a round or whatever, the bands have to fit. For me, that's 100% sure.
And also, we should see new bands since it's like a new season.
Yeah, we should see new bands every time. There's never enough bands. So.
Okay.
But yeah, new Apple Watch that would be amazing. So let's hope for the best. We already had a leak yesterday, so that kind of gives us a little heads up on many things, assuming the leak was real. So, and my number 1 for me, which I'm sure is going to happen, it's a new iPhone. No.
Oh, that sucks.
I know that sucks. I know. No. Before the leaks came, I was always wondering why, after so many months, we were still having issues getting lots of AirPods in stock. Rumors are that they are hard to produce, hard to manufacture, or there's a high yield of them that are basically not up to par with Apple specs. So they cost a lot of money to make, then they are hard to make, and there are so few units available. I was hoping that maybe a new revision, not necessarily a design change, because the design is pretty nice, but maybe just like a small spec bumps and new chips or whatever that make it so that Apple can spend 5 minutes saying that here's a new revision. It's better, it's faster, it's more reliable, and you get like 5% more battery life. And that would be just an excuse for them to revisit the design of the manufacturing of those AirPods and be able to crank them out 10 millions per week instead of 10 per month. So that would have been my hope. Now we saw the leak. It might already be in the works, and we might already have this week. So it's half confirmed. So, but still, that would be my number one.
My number one is I hope they sell the new iPhone for $299.
Holy cow!
No, I'd like to see something really cool with AR kit. Something like I haven't thought about that's going to be like, oh, this is cool.
So like the rumor a couple of months ago was that Apple was working with Carl Zeiss, the makers of glass and lenses. So maybe they were working on some kind of a pair of glasses where AR would be embedded in them. So you think like maybe some prototype of an AR platform like that?
Yeah, something AR, VR. I don't know. I find it interesting, and I haven't really done anything. And if it's easy with the new iPhone, I might get into it. So something cool and new.
Yeah, because the novelty of firing like bullets at enemies using your iPhone and walking around in your house, it's nice, but it's still just a little rectangular screen of action. If you could have those in your eyes, on your eyes directly, that would be amazing. So yeah, I agree. If there's like a full-fledged AR platform, this thing would revolutionize the gaming world, because just think about the number of people who could buy those, if it's not too expensive, of course. If the glasses are like $1,000, forget it. But if the price of the glasses are cheaper than the current headsets for VR, Apple would be in a position that would be amazingly well, and they would be able to first start a new segment for their business, have a ton more customers, because this will attract a lot more gamers. So lots of more Android user might switch to the iPhone because of the new AR thing. And it's also a new gold rush for the App Store. So once again, a couple of $100 million in Apple's bank by the end of 2018. So yeah, I agree. This would be amazing. Not sure if it's feasible, but it would be so amazing.
I think that's it for top 3.
All right.
Stuff that won't happen, especially the Mac Mini.
Keep hoping, man. Have faith in Apple. It's gonna work one day.
Yeah.
Not sure if it's this week, but one day the new Mac Mini for sure. Because as Phil Schiller said, it's still a product in their lineup. So
yeah, exactly. There's so much confidence in that product.
That is so reassuring.
Yeah.
All right, so that's it for this week. So you can find the show notes at rgba.fm/62. You can find us on Twitter at _RGBA. And I'm Valliere, VALLIERES.
I'm Tyler Menard, TYLERMENARD.
Have a nice week.
Have a nice week.